Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukrainian talk show on POD TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today's guests are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you, Sasha. Glad to be here as always.
Yeah, thank you. It's always great to see you and have your points of view. Very valuable as always. And also we have Ivan Kucherenko from Kyiv, Ukraine. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Glad to be here as well.
Great to have you. Do you have a video for us today?
Sure, we can start with it.
Sure. Good idea.
Just kilometers from the front line, a Ukrainian bomb factory operates under the radar. This isn't high tech, it's survival. Like a weapons grocery store, frontline units come here to shop for weapons to take back to battle. For the first time, Ivanich, the man behind it all, is speaking out. He says his factory is responsible for over 30,000 Russian deaths. A legend that you are responsible for over 30,000 Russian deaths. Can you confirm this?
Більше.
I'm Audrey McAlpine with United 24 Media, and right now we're on our way to look inside of a Ukrainian bomb factory. Now, this factory is led by a gentleman named Ivanich, and he's the head of the 3rd Regiment. The 3rd Regiment is a special operations group within the Ukrainian Armed Forces. This is the first time that he's ever spoken with press. He'll be meeting with us today and giving us an exclusive look inside of this factory.
We're creating ammo trucks that work on the front line, reassembling old weapons and engineering new solutions. The range of ammunition we get is massive. Anything and everything. Take a Javelin or NLAW from the front lines. Maybe hit by shrapnel but still intact inside. That explosive can power an FPV drone or be dropped on someone. Or take a grenade, add a counterweight or a tail, and now it's ready for aerial drops. Everything, what you know, and even what you don't, can be turned into a weapon. You just have to get creative. The main thing is safety. We're working with explosives. Anything can happen. Every bullet has a name on it. Whether it's for the Russians or for us here in the factory, you have to be a master of your craft.
I've got to be honest, the atmosphere in here is quite tense. You walk around and there are enough explosives to do some serious damage. Earlier we were walking and they showed us just a table of household objects. Each one of them was booby-trapped with different munitions. And even just now walking, you definitely want to be very sure of where your next step is. Necessity is the mother of invention. And in Ukraine, there's no luxury of endless supplies.
We can't afford to throw away ammunition like the US. In Ukraine, nothing goes to waste. Everything is used. Absolutely everything. We're not as rich as America. Sure, there's some brand new ammo, but it's rare, very rare. We can make better ammo for this war than the US, Israel, or the UK if we had the money. We've built weapons before, and we've done it well. But now, with no budget, we're left with nothing. Everyone's waiting for an American miracle or some foreign savior, but the truth is, we could do it better ourselves. Invest in production, and you'll see the results. Before the war, I was a businessman. But when it started in 2014, I joined because it threatened my family. And I'll never forgive the Russians for that. If you have a family and kids and can't protect them, then why the fuck were you born? Russia thinks they can come here and tell me what to do. But they're wrong. They claim to be strong and powerful. It's bullshit. They will be beaten. If we'd been better prepared, maybe this wouldn't have happened. In the past, we were distracted. But now, we're focused. Technology is Ukraine's path to victory. We shouldn't fight meat for meat. We don't need to let technology do the fighting for us. Drones in the air, drones on the ground. People need to sit down and figure this out. We have bright minds and successful startups. It's time to put them to work.
Many U.S. weapons sent to Ukraine are defunct, some dating back to the 1950s. Instead of risking lives with battlefield trials, ammo is being repurposed to fit Ukraine's needs on an ever-changing battlefield, where new technology, like drones, is replacing classical artillery. From our talks with Ivanch today, it's clear that though the West is sending a lot of weapons, they're not always the weapons that Ukraine needs, whether that's because they're defunct or they're just not packaged in a proper way. And that couldn't have been more clear, this contrast between old and new, which has come to define the war. And that was seen just where you see guys opening up these explosives, taking the parts that they need and repurposing them, using drones, using robots. And I think that, again, what Ukraine is doing is it's really teaching the West and the world what it looks like to fight a modern war.
Now that is improvisation and creativity taken to the highest level that I have ever seen. And she's right. The America could learn a great deal from what they are seeing, and just not rely on throwing money at the problem. We waste a lot. We waste a significant amount of resources. It's quite true, and we can learn to be much more efficient.
Absolutely. And I think what I saw is it's very questionable how Russia, being so much backward, can defeat Ukraine. Never mind this peace proposals and all the talks. And I just don't see if everybody would leave both Russia and Ukraine alone and let them to continue the fight and just support Ukraine just a little bit. And I really don't see how Russia can make any progress at all. And soon it would be defeated anyway.
Well, you recall Napoleon once said, one of his axioms was that the moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1. And you can see the truth of it here in Ukraine's effort against Russia. And oh, by the way, when the narrator was talking about, or the fellow was talking about bullets have names on them, so to speak. It reminds me of a short little poem, to whom it may concern, and it says, it reads, when you've spent your time in combat behind a sandbagged wall, bullets with your name on them don't bother you at all. When you've dodged your share of bullets, there's one thing you will learn. The ones that really worry you, read To Whom It May Concern.
Great poem.
Yeah, great poem. Ivan, how the people in Kyiv, in Ukraine, what they think about the present situation? What's the latest? What you think?
Opinions divide. Some are waiting for the end of January when President Trump will officially sit his place in the White House, and that something will change. And but a lot of those who says that, like in this video, that Ukrainians mostly should rely on our own, and unfortunately, this is our war. The Budapest Memorandum, the first wave of Russian invasion in 2014, they confirmed that there is no guarantees and no one will protect you. No one will risk their own lives. No one will risk their own security by protecting. No one will ever confront nuclear power and stop them from breaking the international law by force. And this is the major problem of not actual of this war, but of the future global security, because every country strong enough which has a nuclear arsenal, they in future, if Russia will be unpunished, they in future can go the same way. They can attack their neighbors, annex territories, break the international law, and there will be no force for them to stop doing it. Even sanctions, you've seen after the full-scale invasion in 2022, not all sanctions were imposed on Russia. They've been imposed step by step. Oil sanctions, which decrease the Russian income from selling oil, they were only implemented this year, almost 3 years after the start of the full-scale invasion. All because United States, European countries, they don't want to dramatically decrease the success of their and the well-being of their own population, because those sanctions will harm their own economy, their own population, and who is Ukraine for them in order to go against their own people, and that's the problem. So coming back, Sasha, to your question, opinions here are different, but a pretty great amount of people concerned that Ukraine is mostly on their own in this war. Of course, we are thankful for the help from Western countries, but that we see that in numerous situations, this help comes too late. Unfortunately, Ukrainians are dying when politicians in Western countries are discussing what weapons should we give to Ukraine, or what agreements we should sign, and what we can allow to do with these weapons, what we cannot allow. That's not good at all.
Ivan, I'm quite surprised by that thinking that Ukraine is alone, because actually lately Ukraine is getting more and more help from the West, including the United States. Now, you know whose country who is helping financially Ukraine the most? It's Russia, because Russia frozen funds, the percentage of it is directed immediately to Ukraine, and Ukraine is getting a lot of help using this money that Russia was keeping in the West, and now the West resolved to use the percentages that this money are being earning in the West, used for helping Ukraine. It's already underway. Now, on the other hand, the prospects of getting some kind of peace with Russia, you know, and probably most Ukrainians probably know already, they discovered that not only Budapest Memorandum couldn't work, there are no memorandums, there are no agreements, there is nothing at all in this world that could guarantee Ukraine from the further attacks from Russia. There's nothing. Even NATO, even membership in NATO, while unachievable at this point at least, even that doesn't guarantee anything. Unfortunately, that's a reality. So only being powerful, having a great army, maybe even a nuclear arms, that's a guarantee, not a piece of paper, whether it's a Budapest Memorandum or a similar document. Jonathan, what do you think?
Well, if Ukraine were somehow to acquire even a modest nuclear capability, and definitely a tactical nuclear capability, if you want to put it that way, in terms of distance, or just being able to strike Russia with an intermediate nuclear capability, having a nuclear capability would be a guarantee, a firm guarantee against a Russian invasion and against achieving conquest. Back in 1994, 93, 94. While I was researching my article on Ukraine, the aspiring nuclear power, one of the number of statements that the Ukrainian political and military leadership were making, they were talking about the usefulness of having their own nuclear arsenal, about keeping there was significant talk about keeping their portion of the former Soviet nuclear arsenal as a guarantee of invasion from Russia. And and I'm quite certain that thinking still exists to a significant extent within the Ukrainian military and political leadership. So that there is certainly incentive for Ukraine to acquire its own nuclear capability, independent nuclear capability. And if that were to occur, if that could be buttressed with a significant investment by the West in ballistic missile defense, further strengthening ballistic missile defenses, certainly intermediate range ballistic missile defense, that could do much to stabilize the situation for the intermediate to long term for Ukraine. In the absent that, in the interim, I still consider it imperative for Ukraine to be able to pick the most proper moment for them to unleash a counteroffensive, not just in Kursk, although that's certainly apparently proving to be very useful. The Ukrainians are playing that very close to the vest, but the Russians are being forced to react to it. But if they can achieve a decisive operational counterstroke that isolates the Crimea, that's the center of gravity. That I still consider that the key to the whole conflict. If they can isolate and retake the Crimea through isolation by cutting off the reinforcement links and supply links, and then using whatever strategic reserve they have available to counter-invade the Crimea, that will be a decisive operational victory that will compel Russia to negotiate an armistice, if not an outright peace.
I'm surprised about not being a single voice in Ukraine, including President Zelensky, who would keep kind of a certain line that would help Ukrainians to unite and be focused on the defending the country. Because one day it's possible peace negotiations with Russia, or talking to U.S. or European powers or so on. So, and because it's, I'm not against having talks with the world leaders at all, but when it's all up in the public broadcasts and everybody can listen, and one day is one information, the next day is another information, the third day it's information contradicts both yesterday's and the day before yesterday's information, and so on. And there is no talk about the bringing all the people up to fight invaders. This is almost like on the background. At least whatever materials I'm listening to, I don't hear that message at all. Ivan, am I wrong? Am I missing something?
Yeah, I agree that there are different messages, and what we lack here in Ukraine is specific steps which are required to win this war. But I'm not sure that somebody at all can can give such specific steps and that they are dependent only on President Zelensky or on Ukrainian officials. First of all, they're dependent on the circumstances and conditions of this war, which are changing pretty quick, and I think that this is the major reason why there is no one specific line or one specific plan in this situation. But it's only my opinion. I don't see any sociological researches. According to them, majority of Ukrainians still support President Zelensky. Majority of Ukrainians consider that Ukraine should be a part of European Union and NATO. Majority of Ukrainians are not are against having any territorial losses to Russia as the result of any peace negotiations. They believe in a peace when Ukraine, which Ukraine should achieve according to the international law and get back all our occupied territories, including punishment of Russia, including reparations which Russia should pay to Ukrainians. This is what public opinion about. And also people here are talking about possible future elections, but everyone understands that until the end of this war there may be no elections at all, and how much this will take, nobody knows. President Trump is talking about finishing this war not in 24 hours already, but he admits that he will have much more time, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure that he will be able to finish this war on his own, even within this time, because Putin is not doesn't want to end this war yet, because continuing this war is brings more profits to him than stopping this war. They're getting territories step by step. They're building their weapons, they're creating their weapons. Of course, they're losing a lot of people in this war, but people is not a question for Russia. They don't consider about losing people. And, they have North Koreans, not only Russians are fighting. So
yes,
I don't know the forecast about the end of this war actually. When it will end, I'm not sure that it will end in this year. Maybe it will take also the next year as well.
Mid-26, that's where it's going to end.
They are right. I saw a short article about how the North Korean suicide troops are now an additional concern. Well, when you really think about it, the Russians are suicide troops. So they've got two sets of suicide troops going against Ukraine. All right, more grist for the meat grinder. So I just I find it almost unfathomable that Russia is willing to expend so much of its people, even though Putin has said is trying to avoid enlisting ethnic Russians per se. He's relying on other nationalities as much as he can in order to throw more manpower into the fight. But Ukraine is taking the proper approach, relying on technology, their own resources, building up their own defense industry, and using their diplomacy to the maximum extent that they can to gain additional help and additional allies, and convince those allies that it is in their interest ultimately to ensure that Ukraine wins this war against Russia. I mean, not just achieve a stalemate, but actually defeat them and force them to retreat. And again, I consider Crimea the center of gravity, the decisive center of gravity for this conflict. If Ukraine, in addition to expanding the Kursk salient as a useful distraction, if they can at some point launch that counteroffensive to isolate and retake Crimea, that will be the decisive moment.
Jonathan, unfortunately, West hasn't made up for Putin to continue the war much more expensive and at the end of the day unaffordable compared to the peace. That's why he's not.
But that's what President Trump is going to be compelled to do. He is increasingly going to see from his advisors and from his available intelligence that because he has a very transactional frame of mind in viewing this, he believes in the art of the deal. Well, he's got to raise that cost to the Russians of making that deal much less than they're continuing to engage in the war. He's got to raise that cost very visibly. And that implies not just maintaining the current level of military assistance to Ukraine, but actually increasing it decisively and giving Ukraine the freedom of action to use all of its weapons in any manner they so choose.
Yeah, I agree. In the meantime, let's be realistic. I think that neither Putin nor Ukraine really want to have a peace agreement for various reasons, different reasons. Putin, if it's a peace, then he's coming back to ruined economy, absolutely a horrible population that now, since the war is no longer there, they will ask, so where are we now? We were doing before 2022, we were doing well, we were building economies, our family did better and better, and so now we are in 2025, and then where we are, what's going to happen to us? And then there is another problem that hundreds of thousands warriors from the front lines will come back to Russia. And I remember quite well what's happened when Afghanistan war ended. A lot of Afghani veterans, they were forming bandit bands, including Moscow. And they were attacking people and they were grabbing people and so on. So these people will be even more intensified to do the same. So there will be a huge unrest in Russia because of this. So there are various points why Putin. But you see, Putin is not going to say to Trump, "No, I'm going to continue to fight." That's the end of the story. No, he's going to talk and negotiate. And now the preparation for a meeting between Trump and Putin. And that meeting will take place, who knows, probably in Switzerland, or maybe some other country. And it will take, preparation to this meeting will take probably good 2 months. I don't see it could be done earlier. And after that 2 months, there will be some continuations of that meeting. So there will nothing happen real anytime soon. Now, Ukraine is in a good situation because it doesn't have to say no to Trump. Putin is going to do that. Ukraine doesn't have to do anything. So Ukraine has to prepare to continuation of war, but on much more favorable terms to Ukraine, because now it still gets Western help. So it can start accumulate a lot of weapons ready to be used against Russians. And, so Zelensky may say that, okay, maybe we will do this type of negotiations or this strategy we'll pursue or so on. But that's just, maybe he's doing that to hide his real intentions. And his real intention, in my opinion, should be continued preparation for decisive battle against Russians and win. The win, because nobody is going to do it for Ukraine. Ukraine has to do it itself. Ivan, what do you think Am I correct?
I totally agree with you, Sasha, and of course, Ukraine will not accept the requirements of Putin. They are not acceptable, and hopefully, President Trump will not accept them as well, because they will ruin the international law. They will make United States look very weak in eyes of all American partners if President Trump will accept those crazy requirements of Putin in order to give to Russia those territories they were not able to occupy yet, in order to significantly decrease the number of military forces of Ukraine, prevent Ukraine from joining NATO and all that stuff. And in this case, I agree that it will be Putin who will say no to Trump, because Trump will offer Putin to change their requirements, to accept probably the present situation on the battlefield, to froze the conflict according to the current battle line, which means that Ukrainian forces will stay in Kursk region, and of course Putin will not accept it as well, because in this case he will show himself weak to his partners, to China, to Iran, to North Korea, and in this case war will continue and until the really major event coming on the battlefield. I hope, and I agree with Jonathan, that it would be about Crimea. I believe that Ukrainian forces are preparing a major attack on Crimea. They want to see how Russians will flee from Crimea, will actually swim from here, because the Crimean bridge would be destroyed, and they will not be able to drive their cars from Crimea. They will have to left all their cars or all their weapons here and just swim across the Black Sea and Azov Sea to Russia from Crimea very quickly.
Either that or massively surrender to the invading Crimean counterattacking Crimean forces, in which case will be very decisive. Yeah.
Or that way, actually, which in this case will allow Ukraine to exchange all our prisoners of war versus all Russian prisoners of war, because their number will be increased significantly in one moment. Probably it will be all about the Crimea. Will we see this offensive operation this year? I hope so. When nobody knows. So let's just.
It's becoming very similar to the situation in World War II. Remember when the Germans, where Stalin was looking for a second front in the West, and the Germans were anticipating that the Allies were going to invade France. They just didn't know precisely where. And, basically the world was anticipating, okay, when is the great invasion going to come from the West? It could have happened in 1943, but the West had much slimmer resources supporting it in terms of landing craft. That was the main thing holding it back. In 1944 is when they finally had the combination of air supremacy and sufficient landing craft to support a major invasion force. So in this way, if we compare it to the current situation, yes, it is possible that either this year, or hopefully not, but if necessary next year, you would have a counteroffensive that retakes the Crimea and inflicts that decisive operational defeat that the Russians simply cannot disguise.
Well, except the Kursk operation, for the last, I'd say, year and a half, Ukraine had a basically defensive posture, and the initiatives were staying with Russians. I hope that in this year, in 1925, situation will change, and Ukraine will be able to build initiative, strategic initiative, and in fact take initiative in their own hands. About this so-called the peace negotiations or so on, in my opinion, it's a waste of time. And Jonathan, while you were mentioning more than once that Trump is transactional president, and I think therefore you might notice that he's getting much greater and dose of enthusiasm when he's talking about Greenland, Canada, or Panama Canal or something else, because that's a transactional situation. Okay, today you have Greenland, tomorrow you have Greenland. If it's Ukraine, I just don't see the transactional value for Trump.
Well, it's rather interesting because a Time magazine article or some Time magazine reporter likened Trump's initiatives with our desire for vis-a-vis Greenland, the Panama Canal, and Canada as to like he's playing a game of Monopoly. No, he isn't playing a game of Monopoly. Have you ever heard of the game of Risk by Parker Brothers? That is a very basic, it was designed in the 1960s by Parker Brothers. It's a basic conquer the world type of game for 2 to 6 players. Man, but any competent Risk player and they do have some Risk tournaments, but in the game of Risk, the continent of North America is a very strong asset to the player who is able to control it, because it's both very defensible and it offers the opportunity for expansion in 3 different directions: into Asia from Alaska, into Europe from Greenland, and into South America and subsequently Africa, if you control Central America, if you control that North American continent. To a geopolitical strategist, as well as to any war game strategist, if you look at it from that perspective, President Trump is doing what a very competent Risk player or geopolitician would do: be able to dominate and control the North American continent as either because he is thinking about America first. What that implies is that America, the United States, should be the world's geopolitical balancer, much the same way that Great Britain was the geopolitical balancer to the continent of Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries. President Trump looks as if he's going to be doing this on a much larger scale. It does not mean that the United States is going to commit its own land forces anywhere in the world. Instead, what he is apparently trying to do is make the United States the geopolitical bulwark and give it a position where it can intervene if necessary and project power only when necessary. So if he's able to do that, then it is a very logical and actually excellent strategy. But he needs political consistency. He needs an overarching strategic framework which guides the priorities for military spending. And the implications of President Trump's geopolitical approaches to these 3 is that the United States in the future will require strategic dominance in 2 main areas. One is control of the sea. He must maintain global controls of the sea, which it has done for most of the majority of the 20th century, now the 21st. But it must also have control of space, secure sea and space. You must have an upgraded space force that can dominate space and prevent our adversaries from using space effectively, as well as create the worldwide strategic defense matrix, which would effectively neutralize our adversaries' nuclear arsenals. Control those 2 areas, and you have a very logical framework for President Trump and a very logical justification for President Trump's interest in Greenland, the Panama Canal, and Canada.
Jonathan, do you think there are some areas where this strategy could backfire?
It would backfire. The strategy might backfire if only if you were trying to, for example, try to commit U.S. military forces to seizing say, for example, the Panama Canal, it might have the potential for backfiring, especially if the military operation is not carried out very decisively and effectively. And the Greenland, not so much. Greenland, it's already proceeding in a way that I believe President Trump wants, to have not dominance of Greenland or control of making it part of the United States, but having agreements with Greenland that would strengthen the United States' economic position, its material position, as well as its basing position. And Panama Canal, and with Canada, I think what he really wants is a closer economic association, closer economic relationships, and for Canada to basically be much more cooperative in terms of military cooperation and basing. So there is. Go ahead.
Sorry, what I see happening in Canada is, for example, tomorrow in Ottawa, there is a meeting of 10 provincial premiers, and the theme is only one: retaliatory tariffs against United States. Now there is a discussion about Canada joining European Union, because the stock of people in Canada, there's, unlike in the United States, it's almost 99% European stock of Germans, of French people, of course, UK, Ireland, and so on. While in the US, you have also a lot of people from Latin America, Central America, Africa, and who knows where else, but not in Canada. Canada population is European stock, including, by the way, Ukrainians, including Poles, including any, but it's all Europe. So it's quite possible that all will be discussed is for European Union to issue invitation to Canada to join. And Canada has a lot to offer to European Union because it has 2 oceans control. It has a pretty good navy. It has incredible amount of minerals that European Union is rather poor in that respect. So that could be quite formidable initiative, but we will see how it will develop. So in this case,
it is a fascinating set of strategic options that will confront the Trump administration once it takes control January 20th, and there is an opportunity, if properly handled. It is an opportunity for the West to achieve great strategic advantage with the United States at the center, but not necessarily dominating in all respects. I believe the more profitable course for the United States will be for it to become the world's geopolitical balancer, not its policeman.
Yeah, but even as a balancer, you don't go to Canada and say, okay, we are going to put 25% tariffs. I was just in one party with friends, and there was a person, he's a friend of mine, I know him for more than 20 years, and he has a mechanical shop which is doing a lot of products, including for the United States. So now he's saying if with 25% tariffs, I will not be able to continue operate as usual, and I will have to look for new markets, including Asia, maybe Europe, or so on, because I will not be able to compete in this environment. So, and nothing is changing so far. So this is why it's now being more and more discussed in Canada. Some other alternatives, but
the negotiations will be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, agree with you, Jonathan. You're always right, even when you're wrong. But you're always right. Jonathan, Ivan, thank you so much for today's program, and I'm looking forward to see you on Friday, same place, same time. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.